Text from mom. We've changed the locks and the gate code. We don't trust you anymore. My response was brief. Got it. Smart move. But I think you missed something. Then I logged into my bank account and stopped the $4,800 mortgage payment I'd still been making every month, despite them telling me my sister deserved the house. 2 days later, I got an email from their attorney. There's an issue. Please call right away. I never did, because by then, it was already. Around noon, my phone buzzed. I had just stepped out of a meeting and glanced at the screen. Text from mom. I assumed it'd be something routine, maybe a reminder about someone's birthday, or a request to run an errand. But no, it was straight to the point. No greeting, no soft landing. Just one sharp paragraph. They had changed the front door locks and updated the gate code. And then the kicker. We don't trust you anymore. I stared at the message. Read it again. And again. These were the same people I'd been financially supporting for over 10 years, cutting me off like I was a liability. I wasn't even angry at first, just stunned. A wave of quiet, painful clarity washed over me. I sat in my car, typed 5 words back, and hit send. Got it. Smart move. But, because here's the thing. About 8 months ago, they began pushing this idea that my sister was the rightful heir to the house. The one who had given them grandkids, lived nearby, helped with groceries. Never mind that I'd been footing the $4,800 monthly mortgage for 5 years. Never a missed payment. It hit automatically, like clockwork. Even during the pandemic, when I lost my job, I kept paying. Drained my savings to keep their roof intact. But my name was never on the deed. Something about refinancing complications. I let it slide. I thought they had integrity. Over time, my sister began acting like the house was hers, telling me not to park in her driveway, asking me to call before coming over. I dismissed it. Family dynamics, I thought. Then mom started dropping lines like, "She earned this. At least she's around." Those words cut deep. They all knew I worked brutal hours and still paid most of their bills, hers included. Then, about a week ago, I went by to drop off some documents. The gate didn't open. My code didn't work. I called. Nothing. I waited. 15 minutes later, my sister drove up, rolled her window down with a smirk, and said, "You're not on the access list anymore." I said nothing, just drove away. Still, part of me hoped it was a mix-up, that mom would reach out. Instead, she sent that text, crystal clear. They wanted me gone. So I did the one thing they never expected. I opened my laptop, logged into my account, and halted the next mortgage payment. No message, no warning, because I didn't owe them an explanation anymore. Then I got a coffee and went on with my day. If they were cutting me out, fine. But they forgot one critical detail. The house they clung to, still hanging on my dime. 2 days later, an email came in. Early morning. I was brushing my teeth when I saw it. Subject: There's an issue. Call immediately. It was from the family's longtime attorney. I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it was. The mortgage payment was due, and nothing came in. They probably assumed the money came from a joint account, or some long-gone inheritance. They had no idea I was the lifeline all along. Quietly, consistently. I never even told them when I landed a new job with a promotion that made those payments easier. I just did what needed to be done, until they made it clear I wasn't family anymore. So now, they can figure it out on their own. I had been the quiet engine keeping everything running. Even after they handed the keys, the praise, and the supposed ownership over to my sister. But now that I'd pulled the plug on my silent generosity, the cracks were spreading faster than they could patch them. That afternoon, My sister called. I let it ring. Then Mom. She actually left a voicemail, her voice tight and trembling. I didn't need to hear the whole thing to know what it said. The mortgage company had reached out. The payment didn't come through. And because of how they'd restructured the loan during that low-interest window a few years ago, this wasn't just a slap-on-the-wrist situation. It triggered clauses. Dangerous ones. The kind that make banks nervous. They had no financial cushion. I knew that for a fact. Every birthday, every broken appliance, every scraped-together Christmas. Guess who they called? Me. Every urgent need for a water heater, or a last-minute school trip, or a leaking roof, I paid for it. Now, the moment I stepped away, everything they'd been papering over with my money started to collapse. By the end of day 2, I finally opened the email from the lawyer. It was polite, vague. Something about a misunderstanding and possible solutions, if I was willing to talk. I closed it without replying. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. They'd made their feelings crystal clear. Locked me out physically, emotionally, financially. But in their rush to erase me, they forgot that I'd been the one holding everything up. You can't shove someone out the door and expect them to keep paying for the lights. They said my sister deserved the house? Fine. Let her own it. Let her scrape together $4,800 a month. Let her explain to her husband why the utility bill's overdue. Let Mom figure out how to keep the power on next week. I didn't call back, didn't text, because if they were honest with themselves, they already knew what happened. And by the time they realized they needed me, it was too late to pretend otherwise. By day 3, the tone shifted. I had 15 missed calls by lunchtime. Mom, Dad, my sister, even her husband, the one who hadn't said more than a grunt to me in over a year, was now suddenly dialing me. The voicemails came in waves. Confusion, guilt, then indignation. Like I'd ambushed them. But the truth? I hadn't changed a thing. They had. All I did was stop carrying a weight they'd quietly dumped on me years ago. That afternoon, I happened to drive past the house. Didn't stop. Didn't even slow down. But I noticed something new. An unfamiliar SUV parked at the curb, with a real estate sign lying flat in the back seat. It hadn't been there last week. That's when it hit me. They were planning to sell. The lockout wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. They wanted to clean things up, stage the house, schedule showings, and tie up the sale without dealing with the inconvenient reality of me still being around. Still mowing the lawn. Still part of the picture. Maybe they thought they'd keep it quiet, get the deal done, and toss me a half-hearted thank you once it was over. Maybe not even that. What they didn't realize, the mortgage wasn't theirs. Not really. The debt still sat where I'd left it. 5 years of my money keeping it afloat. They hadn't paid down the principal. They hadn't touched it. They thought they were sitting on value. But all they had was an illusion, propped up by me. I double-checked the county records just to confirm. Sure enough, the deed hadn't changed hands. My name wasn't on it, but neither was my sister's. It was still listed under my parents, with a fat lien attached from the last refinance. And there it was, in the fine print. My financial contributions recorded as part of the refi paperwork. Informal, not legally binding, but visible enough to raise eyebrows if anyone looked closely. I had leverage, but I didn't even need to use it. The next morning, the real estate sign went up in front of the house. Coming soon, in bold red letters. I could picture the scramble happening inside, trying to explain a pending default, trying to delay the next notice, trying to keep a brave face for the realtors, the buyers, the neighbors. Later that day, the lawyer emailed again. This one was longer, more careful, full of phrases like amicable resolution and open to collaboration. They knew the storm was coming. And still, I said nothing, because finally, for the first time in years, the silence felt earned. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was after peace. And at last, I had it. They said my sister deserved the house. Okay, let her explain to the bank why her name was nowhere on the deed. Let her explain why the payment history traced back to someone who had stopped answering the phone. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need a public spectacle. All I had to do was step back and let the structure collapse under the weight of its own dishonesty. They had built a version of reality that excluded me. Now they were forced to live in it. By day 4, the flood of calls and texts slowed to a trickle. Mom stopped leaving messages. My sister went quiet. The lawyer, once eager to find a resolution, sent one final note. We are currently exploring our options and will be in touch. Translation: the bank had likely rejected their request for a grace period. Maybe even flagged the account for default. When a mortgage that size stops getting paid, the lender doesn't sit around and wait. They move. The dream house? It wasn't a legacy. It wasn't a reward. It was a liability. One they had never actually carried, and one they couldn't keep up. The silence wasn't just avoidance. It was fear. A quiet scramble behind closed doors, too embarrassed to admit the truth. They'd expected me to break, to come crawling back with an apology or a check. But I didn't. I got on with my life. For years, I'd been their safety net, the one who paid without thanks, the one who showed up without ever being asked, the one who kept everything running and never made it about credit. And when they cut me out, without warning or respect, they also severed the only thing holding that house together. The fallout wasn't mine to manage anymore. They made their decision, and now they were living it. By the end of the week, the messages stopped entirely. No more voicemails. No more lawyer emails. Just a silence thick with regret. Then a family friend mentioned something offhand during a casual chat. The house sale's on hold, apparently. They pulled the listing. Turns out, the bank had issued a formal warning. They were behind, 2 payments now, and couldn't explain how they'd managed to cover the mortgage for years without stable income. The lender had questions, and my parents had no good answers. The illusion was unraveling. My sister, once smug and self-assured, had gone dark. Her husband, who used to brag about finally owning something, was looking for second jobs. And Mom, the same woman who once texted, "We no longer trust you," was now reaching out to distant cousins for help. People who didn't know the real story. People who hadn't seen the years I spent quietly propping up the life they took for granted. Now the truth was surfacing. The utilities were slipping. The whispers were spreading. And their options were shrinking. Because the one person who had always come through wasn't coming through this time. And I wasn't bitter. I was free. No angry Facebook posts. No passive-aggressive texts. No dramatic family showdowns. Just calm. Just quiet. Just distance. They said she deserved the house. Let her explain the foreclosure notice. Me? I stayed in the same city. Got a new place. One with no strings attached. No ghosts in the hallway. No resentment behind the walls. Every key on my ring? Mine. Every dollar I spent? Mine. Every door I opened? Open for me. No locks changed in secret. No gate codes revoked. No more being punished for being dependable. Just space. Just autonomy. Just peace. And I didn't need their trust anymore. Because for the first time in years, I finally trusted myself enough to walk away. If you found this story powerful, leave a comment with your thoughts and subscribe for more real, dramatic stories like this one. Your support helps keep these voices heard. Thanks for being here.